Bob Chesney's recruiting success continues with the class of 27. 2 commits in April and another one trending in the right direction. Cori Close, in the meantime, for women's basketball, has her first portal strike with her first commit in the transfer portal.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxam. We're reacting to a plethora of recruiting news. Some I might have not touched on, some potential, but 2 commits, one in the portal and one in the high school recruiting, one for football and one for women's basketball. So plenty to talk about. Can't even sneak it into a full episode with Ethan Saba, otherwise you'd be listening for days. So let's get right to it. UCLA football. They have had an April surge to remember in the class of 2027. This is who they have committed so far. They have the linebacker Mike Davis Jr., one of the newer commits to the class. UCLA had a couple early, but since Bob Chesney's taken over, Mike Davis Jr. from Mater Dei, 3-star product. I think I remember Eric Sonheimer having a lot of good promise for him. You have Jackson Hill, one of the latest commits in early April. I haven't touched too much on him, from Chaminade, an offensive tackle. Chaminade isn't exactly Trinity League, but Mission League, always some good football in the southern section. He comes in as a big offensive lineman, 6'5.5", so a big boy to help beef up the UCLA Bruins in the trenches, which is where Bob Chesney clearly realizes, like we all did, the Bruins need to beef up. Michael Farinas, a receiver. You have Colton McKibben, who committed at the end of March, a 4-star linebacker, one of the premier gets in the class for UCLA. But the latest was Montana Toilolo. And I'm definitely butchering his name, so I apologize. So Montana Toilolo, coming from Long Beach, playing in Mater Dei, as another Mater Dei prospect. So you can see the pipeline starting to build. Southern section talent, Southern California talent, heck, even high school teammates on Mater Dei. And you can say, well, was Mater Dei a down program last year? Well, they still got talent top to bottom of that roster that competes not just in a tough league in Southern California, one of the best high school football leagues in the country. In a league where if you win the league championship, you're probably better than 99.9% of teams in the country. And if you go get guys who might be listed as 3-stars who can develop into their senior years, yeah, I trust in Chesney's judgment to go bring in a D lineman and Toilolo from Mater Dei to come in and choose UCLA. Hayes Fawcett was the first on the news from rivals. He chose UCLA over Notre Dame, Miami, Washington, other Power 4s. He had a couple of extra visits to Westwood, and he told rivals the visit was over the top, and the priority that they made me feel, the love he felt from the building. He felt super cool with the support and the greeting from Coach Chesney. The message was simple. From Coach Chesney, this is what Toilolo was telling rivals on his commitment. The message was simple. They want me here and need me to stay home. I can feel a different energy and vibe around the team. You can copy-paste any of those statements from whether I'm saying it to whether you're reading it, you're hearing it, you're seeing it practice or videos, or even hearing it from the recruits. The vibe is completely different. It's understandable, it's easy to see, and it's palpable in recruiting. The Bruins are on an April surge, and they could have even more. For Toilolo, a 6'2", 255-pounder, decide to think about Notre Dame. Notre Dame, they got some big boys up front. They can handle the physicality with Marcus Freeman and company. Miami, well, Miami is a team that just played the national championship game. They've spent big in the portal, in NIL, in high school recruiting. They got big bucks over there with Miami. They had a chance to win a national title earlier in this 2026 calendar year. And what the biggest thing was Lenge Suanoa. That was his position coach. It was that relationship that built it. Chesney puts the cherry on top, closes the deal, and the Bruins keep this messaging clear. We have SoCal talent. We need to keep them here. And I think that was made clear that, hey, we got to stop losing these top-tier recruits, right? A decade ago when it was Mater Dei Bosco for like 10 straight years in the Southern Section D1 final, you would see both quarterbacks highly coveted, highly touted. Whether you think DG Oyonlele or Bryce Young are busts in the NFL or in college, they were still top-tier prospects that went to the ACC first, that went to the SEC first, and had some success to varying degrees, big games against other teams, and they were going across the country. And those are guys who are starting and premier talents in the Trinity League. And now this is UCLA, maybe not getting some 5 stars. I can admit that. But you bring in a Toilolo to UCLA. Okay, some development needed, sure. But that's what Bob Chesney's done best. Development, growth of a program with a staff and with the players to boot. So they have the competitive talent. They have the talent to compete with the transfer portal. They have the talent to slowly bring in the high school recruiting class. That was a bit paltry because of what was left over after Deshaun Foster was fired. But they did enough to shore that up, and they're hit the ground running with what they're doing in the 27 class. Okay? And don't be scared by numbers or stars. You just have to trust Chesney. And if they're to have an Indiana-like turnaround, well, Indiana hit the portal hard, and they brought in some guys that can work hard and immediately grow. And that's what they're getting in the portal. Another player UCLA's trending, according to Greg Biggins of the Rivals on 3 Network, is Charles Davis, a receiver, tight end by trade, depending on what you're looking at. 6'5", hailing from Westlake. So this is another talented product from the northern part of Los Angeles, the greater Los Angeles area out in Westlake Village. And Davis has been crystal balled to UCLA. Now there's already been a tight end in the transfer portal that UCLA had significant ties to that Cal at the last minute swooped in and stole. That was earlier in this transfer portal run in January, heading into February with that craziness. UCLA thought they had him. They brought some tight ends over, maybe not to the talent they could have had with the guy who eventually committed to Cal. Right now, UCLA is battling USC, Oregon, Cal, SMU. So some Big Ten, SEC, or Big Ten, ACC schools, a lot of West Coast products for the youngster, where it's like, okay, if UCLA wants him, they're competing with the big dollars of other schools in the West Coast and their NorCal brethren. You go bring a Charles Davis to UCLA, you've got some talent at the tight end position. Now, obviously, the job is you get a recruit like him. Hey, can you keep these guys satisfied if they're ready to play or not ready to play in their true freshman campaign? Well, the crystal ball leans UCLA on 3, has UCLA a 70% chance to get this talented tight end wide receiver prospect, 4-star, would challenge Colton McKibben in terms of top tier prospect for this 27 class, and he's about to make his commitment on April 10th. So we'll know right away, did UCLA fall victim to a last-second burst in rev share NIL deals and commitments that they're going to maybe fall through on or commit? Or is he going to stick with UCLA and go to Westwood? All right, so that is not as clear. Toilolo committed according to Fawcett. In the meantime, you look at what UCLA might get, Davis, then all of a sudden, this might be how Deshaun Foster was successful in last year's recruiting class. He got one domino, and then they all started falling, just knocking down in a row, and the Bruins class was pretty solid before it got disintegrated after Deshaun Foster lost his head coaching job. So pretty good right now. Now we're going to pivot to UCLA women's basketball, who got their first transfer portal commit in this offseason. Now there's been some leaning with Audie Crooks, who knows, but beyond just the center position, beyond just every position possible, UCLA needs to overhaul with all the seniors going to the draft and graduating. Bonnie Deas out of Arkansas, of Talia Goodman's of On 3 report, saying, hey, she committed to UCLA the transfer portal. Bonnie Deas is Australian, went to Arkansas. So from Melbourne to Arkansas, the 5'9" freshman who had 3 years of eligibility. That's what Cronin's like to do on the men's side, and that's definitely what Cori Close was super successful with in the transfer portal to keep this unit together and win a national championship. And what do the Bruins need? A guard who can do it all. So for Deas, her coming to UCLA represents what? A pickup in scoring from what they're missing, pretty much the entire roster. Averages 10 points per game, played and started in all 32 games she appeared in. Her shooting and the numbers, the stats, you're listening to this, you're not going to like the stats. But I would think after some seasoning, maybe with some more talent around her, when UCLA fills out the roster, maybe these numbers will look better. But 32% from the field, 24% from 3, 68% from the free throw line. She shot almost 100 free throws. But the things that you'll like as a guard, 10 points per game, 9 rebounds per game. As a, let me tell you, 5'9" starting guard. So she gets rebounds. She's tough. seems like with those numbers is as physical and dynamic in terms of getting boards like a Gabriela Jaquez, but has the ball in her hands a whole heck of a lot more. All right. I can't compare the two between championship, royal family-esque if you're UCLA with Gabriela Jaquez. But if you like the rebounding out of a guard, that's what you're getting out of Bonnie Deas, who's only 5'9". Now, looking at her games early on in the year, began her college career with a 25-point outburst against Louisiana Tech, against the mid-majors, had some good outings, but once she got in the thick of it in SEC play, that's when you're playing Don Staley. That's when you're playing Texas, when you're playing Vandy, all three teams, 1 seeds or a 2 seed, LSU, another 2 seed. Those numbers started going from 10 points to a stretch from mid-December to mid-January where she didn't have a single double-digit effort scoring-wise. Against Stephen F. Austin, you go all the way down to Tennessee, against Missouri. Plenty of talented teams they faced, and Bonnie Deas didn't have a lot of scoring, which showcases what? Maybe needed more help around her, was a true freshman in the thick of things, trying to carry things for Arkansas. And then you're like, okay, wow, all right. Got double-digit scoring kind of at the end of the year in mid-February to early March. Scored double figures in 4 of her last 6 games. Ole Miss, tournament team, Mississippi State, Texas, Final Four team, 8 points against Oklahoma, 10 against Kentucky, 7 against Texas A&M. Rebounds were always there. Even when she was struggling to score, would still get 14, 13 rebounds, a season and career high of 16 boards against Kansas City, and still would have good rebounding games against some good teams. So I like that about her. I like the scoring, and I think that's a good starting point for a player with a lot of eligibility who needs to hone in on the shooting efficiency if it's going to be that high of volume. But hey, UCLA has openings, they've got the vibes, and now they got the coaching to boot. So Bonnie Deas, I think, is a solid first commit, but the Bruins cannot just place it all on her shoulders, put it all in her hands. There needs to be a whole well-rounded effort in the portal to make sure UCLA isn't rebuilding, but reloading. But we're still enjoying the championship, all right? We can't wait for that banner to hang. We can't wait for the players to enjoy their pieces of that championship net as they continue to enjoy the championship run that they had over the last 4 years. Deas hopes to continue it. In the meantime, we'll talk more UCLA recruiting. Charles Davis is going to commit very soon. Will it be UCLA? We will react to it on the next Locked On UCLA podcast. We'll talk more portal. Will there be more big names? Everything is going crazy, so stay tuned. Like, comment, subscribe, download. I'm going to be talking so much, whether you like me or not, you'll see me all across wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Be a part of the Everydayer Club. Be a part of the family. In the meantime, hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.